about to do a song that is much cooler if you know the story. So, okay. Once upon I went to school at a little college called Knox College out in Galesburg, Illinois. And I was lucky enough to get to teach there for a term when I was in graduate school. Weirdly enough, I have a PhD. This is crazy. And I was really bored the summer after my teaching was done, and I hadn't yet moved back to graduate school in Urbana. So I took to wandering around looking for towns I had never been to. I just drove around a lot. And there was on the phone company map this town that I could never find called Shanghai City, Illinois. And I thought, with a name like that, it's gotta be awesome. But it didn't exist. I mean, I was where the map told me to be. All the roads were right, but it was just not there. And for years I wondered where the hell that town went. And a few years ago, weirdly enough, I found out by accident. I was looking for something else entirely and came across this news article. Apparently, here's the story. So once upon a time, back in the 1800s, before the railroad had really come through, there was this town, Shanghai City. And it was a wretched hive of scum and villainy, actually. It was a den of iniquity. It was, well, if you were looking for hookers in Knox County, you went to Shanghai City. If you were looking for cockfights in Knox County, you went to Shanghai City. If you were looking for a crooked horse race to bet on, they would hook you up. And apparently, the way it went, there was this famous rooster that cockfought, that murdered other perfectly harmless roosters. So sad. In Shanghai City, it was named after the town. They used to call this bird Shanghai. And so apparently when the farmers were off to have a good time, they would tell their wives, oh, I'm off to see Shanghai, because they were expressing a purely agricultural interest in this bird. Whatever. So once upon a time, 1868, the town had sort of started to die. The railroad had gone to a different town. It ended up going through a little town called Alexis, also in Knox County. And there were still decent people in Shanghai. 5 or 6, and one of them was the preacher's wife at one of the local churches, and one night she was wandering around. We have no idea why she was wandering around, but she was wandering past one of the saloons, and she noticed that most of her parishioners were in there. And so in a fit, she stomped back home to her husband and said, you must preach a fiery sermon against vice, like it was going to go over real well in that town. Yeah, no one was going to listen. They'd go to church, but it's like, hangover. And so she did, and he was all ready, and apparently while he was giving the sermon, a tornado came and wiped Shanghai City off the map. But the best part, that saloon was one of the 3 buildings that survived. So the guys who were still in the bar were fine. The church flattened. Well, yeah, so it's tragic. I mean, people got hurt. 3 people died. It was terrible. But here I am laughing. But it's a great story. That bar is still standing today. It was actually, the guy who owned it apparently thought, well, I got a good thing. I have a bar that survives tornadoes, and I live in Illinois. So he moved it to Alexis, where everyone else moved. So that bar is still standing. It is like a biker dive, which is not much of a difference from what it was before, because they didn't have bikes. And they had horses back in the day. But and it's still there. So this is about that town, sort of.
Saturday night and children are hungry, and she's begging you a little more of your time. But in Shanghai City, the racers are running. Her luck's just one of the ladies that you wanna see. Where you're going when you're off to see Shanghai. It's just one more little lie that helps her let you go. Let you go. down.